Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Loose Framing Podcast. My name is Hilary Weber, and today I am one of your guest hosts along with my colleague,
Jesse Brock. Good morning.
Hi. And today we have with us Staci Talley. She is an actress, a producer, a director, a jack of all trades. We are so excited to have her with us.
Yep. She wears many hats. One of her new endeavors is that she's a board member on Women in Film and Television Florida. So
yeah, she's also a member of Film Florida, so very involved all throughout the state. We're looking forward to hearing from her. So without further ado, let's talk to Staci.
welcome back to Loose Framing Podcast. We have our special guest here today, Miss Staci Talley. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
Yeah, we are too.
Yeah.
Can't wait to pick your brain about all things producing, working in commercial work, and then a little bit of your background in narrative work and storytelling.
Sounds like a good plan to me.
So, I originally connected with you in 2019 when you were working on, what were you working on?
I was working on a pilot episode for a show called Timing, written by Lori Sanasari. And at the time we were, in pre-production, setting it up, filming, but I was an actor in the show. I was not the producer or anything. I just got to learn my lines and show up, do my thing and leave. I was not responsible for anything else but myself. Nice.
That is nice. I bet you're looking back on that now being like, those are the good old days.
Yep.
But I know that you have always kind of been, ambitious in that way because you were reaching out to me to help promote that. So is that kind of where you were like, oh, I actually like the producing and the promotion side of it as well?
Yes, but I had been producing. I was producing commercials at that time. So to audition for that show was an outlet for me to not plan or be responsible for the budget or promo or anything like that. And the more I did this show, we were working with Stephanie at the time, Stephanie Davis, and I'm like, I thought Lori wrote a really good show. So then I started getting more invested. And that's why I asked you, I might be overstepping my boundaries here. But as a producer, I always like to be connected to the film commission, the local companies that should know if you're out and about in their backyard doing things. So that was the kind of the point of bringing it up that night. I think we were on the rooftop for Film Florida meeting.
Yeah,
we had that conversation.
Networking
the
meeting.
First big meeting post-COVID.
Yes. Yeah.
The Film Florida annual meeting at one of the hotels in downtown.
Yeah.
A lot of people showed up. We were ready, girl.
We'll get more into that a little bit later,
Okay.
but you are a networking guru, so I can't wait to talk to you about all of that.
Oh.
But first, I kind of want to dive into your background a little bit. What did you get started on, and how did it lead you to become a producer?
So I lived in Orlando for a few years. That's where I went to college. And a friend of mine and I started a company called My Christian Films. It's a nonprofit, verified IRS, everything, as a production company making faith-based content. So what we did there, we got a studio, we had sponsors and investors, and we created a lot of talk shows and a few films. So the talk shows aired in 96 different countries. None of them here in the US, except for YouTube, if you want to count that. But we filmed teen talk shows, a woman's talk show, Let's Chat. We had a music countdown show with a couple of youngsters that were telling us, because Christian music was going through a revolution at the time. So they would do a countdown of the top 10 in that show. And we had a ton of volunteers in the sense of for education. So you come in, and if you want to be a director or a DP, the showrunner, floor manager, what have you, we had the professionals in place, and then the volunteers would come in and they would shadow. So you shadow this person and learn the job. So by default, I started this way as a host of one of the shows, and then I started producing because, there's 3 of us that ran this company and sat on the board. And when you're a nonprofit, there's not a lot of money to go around. So we just did all of the jobs. So I learned how to edit. I learned how to schedule, how to make things efficient. I'm also the oldest of like 8 kids. I think it's just in my brain somewhere to organize and boss people around.
Oh, yeah. I definitely can relate to the oldest child syndrome.
Yes. This is a syndrome that I also possess.
Yeah.
And it's helpful, I think, in this business to be able to respectfully keep everyone in line so that we can all be successful, not actually bossing them around. Unless you're related to me, then all bets are off. And then so from there, that just became ingrained because, you're like early 20s, like figuring this out becomes ingrained. I moved to Tampa and the film scene was not as great as it was in Orlando at first because you don't know anybody. So I know that it's here, but you got to learn, you got to get out there, got to meet people. And I was auditioning for commercials, ran into James Meese at Hit Show Productions for an audition. He was struggling with Final Cut 10. He was like, this thing sucks. And I'm like, oh, you just need to do X, Y, and Z. And he said, you edit? And I was like, in Final Cut. And he goes, can you come next Tuesday at 10 o'clock? And I showed up next Tuesday at 10 o'clock and I started helping him edit commercials. And it was history from there. We would go to shoots. I'm like, oh, let me make the schedule. Let me make because of my experience in, the studio in Orlando. And that's how I got into commercials. It started with infomercials. And then from infomercials, I branched out into
And did your teams
others.
Keep growing as the projects, became bigger and bigger? Were you finding that you weren't one of 3 anymore, or did it was it a pretty tight team all throughout that time?
The team got bigger at My Christian Films. My Christian Films, it still exists to this day, but it's as a production company.
Oh.
So they film the content for 24 Flix. I don't know if you've heard of 24 Flix, but it's a faith-based, family-friendly, not necessarily super Christian, but it's family-friendly, faith-based content that streams. It's like the faith-based Netflix. And then and also from there came the International Christian Film Festival. Mm-hmm. So Marty, Jean-Louis, founded the festival while we were at My Christian Films. And he and I launched the very first festival where people would send in their films. And we had 5 of us reviewing them. Like, we didn't want to be the ones inside the organization doing the reviewing. So we got I think Nancy McBride was one of them. And they would, how film festivals work. You watch the tapes, you make your votes and all of that. But it was all kind of online before online was a thing.
Yeah.
So we were getting DVDs in the mail and things like that. And then we did a green screen live interview, and I wore an in-ear prompter and interviewed people from all over the country, and it was wild. It was really crazy. And now it's a huge festival in Orlando every year. I mean, it is.
Do you still go every
big.
year?
Almost every year.
Yeah.
I went last year, and I skipped the year before, and then I went the year before that. And the craziest thing happened. You can cut this out, but I think y'all gonna be like, what the heck? So I'm there and I'm just attending, and I was doing red carpet interviews for the VIP section, just, volunteering. And the host of the entire award show got so sick that he left in an ambulance. And so my dudes, my besties, they're like, oh, and I was like, oh, I'm not part of the festival in that way. I don't do any of the plan, just show up and have fun, this kind of thing. And they're like, can you help us? And I was like, oh. So there was another lady there, Courtney. I'm like, girl, you're going to host this. And she said, I was like, I'm going to produce you and you're going to host it. And I got the schedule of the awards, and we were just go. It was the craziest thing.
You just made it happen.
My palms are sweating thinking about it. We went on stage. We're like, just to be transparent, this is what happened. They're like, oh, we're like, ah. And then it was just went on. The music played when it was supposed to. They have a really good organization set up. So the, like kind of the producer who had the schedule but couldn't, like, she doesn't know Courtney. It's Courtney Shaw. So we had to just, okay, Courtney, next is going to be Louis Gossett Jr. or, whoever is going to go on stage. This is like some hard fact just on the Google. I'm like, okay, talk about this. And then she would go out there and she just like did it. I'm like, you're amazing.
That's
You're
incredible.
amazing.
Yeah. It must have felt so rewarding afterwards to know that you pulled that off.
Yes, after I was done with a full blown like borderline panic attack, I was like,
Well, there's nothing like it being like live and in the moment, and the stakes are
man.
so high, so that increased adrenaline. Do you like thrive in that?
oh yeah,
space?
I'm thriving right now.
I can tell.
I'm like, let's go.
Love that. Did you start out as an actor? Who were some of your inspirations in the acting realm?
Oh, okay. Gillian Anderson and Stephanie Kramer she's like an actress from the 80s, and she did this cop show called Hunter for like 9 seasons or something crazy. And for whatever reason, when I was younger, the reruns, like my grandma I think watched it or something, and if you watch it now, obviously it's an 80s show, so it's gonna be like, did that car really need to catch on fire? I don't know. But the way that they set up the character, like she was just this badass as female, like with all these dudes, and she was just didn't take any crap from anybody, like her character. So when you're young, you just assume that that's you know what I mean? They're real people to you. And I think that between like her and my grandma and then Gillian Anderson on the X-Files, again, male dominated industries, but they hold their own. They have guns, they don't take any crap from anybody. So I think that I thought I wanted to be a cop when I grew up. No joke, because of all these cop shows. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna be the police. And it wasn't. I wanted to be the police on TV.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
Yeah.
And then I'm a control freak. So when I'm an actor and then I don't have control over what's happening behind the scenes, I was like, oh, I wish I was doing that. Like, I just like, oh, I want to be that director. Like, he's telling everybody what to do. And then I want to be the lady behind him that's telling him what to do, etc. And that was kind of hopefully a long story shorter of how that happened.
Okay, so in addition to your acting background, are there any other skills that you have developed that you have found are not associated typically with producing, but have been extremely useful to you as a producer?
Yes. I would say learning how to edit has been the biggest help for me as a producer to understand, because as a producer, and I'm also like an agency producer. So from the very first inkling of an idea, like I'm part of this conversation. So the creatives are doing their thing, their creative thing, and I'm listening, I'm observing, right down to, let's say it's a commercial that we're trying to make. And when the DP becomes part of the conversation, and the director, when they're talking, I know what's happening because I know how it's going to cut together in post. I'm not doing animation or anything crazy, but I know my way around editing software. So when we're setting up a shot and somebody's like, it's not working, instead of offering solutions that I don't feel confident in because I don't know what the actual problem is, I'm a lot more confident to know, okay, well, when we cut to this or that, I can offer a solution that they're going to listen to. And they're like, oh yeah, we could cut it this way, instead of not understanding what the actual problem is.
Exactly. Like the stakes are there, if we don't get it and we leave for the day, that's it. And I love that you brought that up, because that's also helped me learning how to edit more, and then producing and directing after that. You're like, wait a second, I don't have any way to transition these 2 points.
Exactly.
I'm like, I need to lead up with another, with a different question to make that happen. So I love that you said that.
Yeah, which we just worked together on a small project, and I could see as you're watching the monitor and watching playback that that's how you're watching it. So imagine if you didn't have the skill, like you get into post and now you have to rely on somebody else to see if you can. Then you have to do let's just get by cut. You're like, Wish I didn't do that.
Yeah, I've filmed way too many things that were not properly edited. They didn't have the pieces there to edit right because I wasn't thinking that way. So I kind of had to adapt.
Same.
Yeah. Trial and error.
Yes. I can also pick up most DSLRs and get by. So if I want to shoot a testimonial, I can light it properly, run my own audio, record it, as long as I have some lenses. And basic B-roll. So if I wanted to go out and shoot something, I can. I haven't done it in years, but I used to do it because I don't like waiting on people. I'm very impatient. So that's why at My Christian Films, learning how to edit, because editors are really hard to find, especially when the pay is low. So we were just, it was a necessity. And then shooting the same way, I wanted testimonials for certain things, and then I didn't want to wait on when everybody was available. I was young and didn't know better. I would never shoot my own stuff now unless I was doing something weird for Instagram, but I will always hire a team. But when I was younger, I was like, I don't have time to wait, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that independent syndrome, that actually has helped me in my career. So if up and coming producers or producers maybe been in it for a while, if you haven't sat in an edit, because some producers, they don't edit, but they sit in edits. They have the same pre-visualization process that we would have, but they don't actually sit and cut because they're smart. They don't mess with that. But I do think that being able to understand the basics of the camera and the editing, it has serves me well in my career.
Well, your current organization that you're working with right now is called Kestum Bilt, and we interviewed Pete too pretty recently. And I just want to know, what's it been like working with Kestum Bilt? I know that you worked on a couple of shoots that were pretty impactful. One had to do with, it was the cause of stopping human trafficking, and you were able to use the LED volume for that to convey that message. So can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yes. So I've been working with Pete. As a producer, we work with a lot of different companies in different capacities. And Pete and Kestum Bilt is unique because they're also open-minded to the types of productions that we do. And Selah Freedom was one of those. They are a nonprofit focusing on ending human trafficking, and they do a lot of good work because they have a follow-through. So they educate. And when they're working with survivors, they work with them all the way through to help them with housing and find jobs and things like that, so that they can get back to some sense of a normal life. And that's what is unique about Selah. So when Pete mentioned this and I looked him up, I was like, oh, okay, let's figure this out. So Pete and I worked with Lori and Staci from Selah to figure out what do you need? How can we help? And they were having a gala down at Armature Works, and they needed some kind of presentation for this gala. And so we worked with Jordan Jacobson to write a script. He came up with a really great concept, and then Pete and I agreed that I should direct this. And we called View. View's like, yes, come on, let's throw this up on the wall and get this done. And then Carrie Buck from Flying Productions, Slice of Life Media, Mara Media, Two Stories Productions, everyone.
Oh, wow. The community really
first unit
rallied.
we went from Pete and I doing an interview into a full-blown LED wall production at View in Tampa.
Wow.
Well, it was it just kept getting bigger and bigger, which directing it was awesome. My favorite part of directing is just talking to talent, so that Pete and I work well in that regard. And we set up this shoot. I worked with Rich Rodman from Silverbox to pre-visualize the LED wall. View, Kevin O'Brien from View sent me this app that they use called SceneForge, which is about to be a huge marketplace thing to pre-visualize the wall. So you go in, you put your little people in there, and you put the things on the wall, just so that then I work with Rich to figure out, okay, let's make this graphic and that graphic. And we went in there, saw it on the wall, was like, what? Because it's larger than life. And then when Staci and Lori came in, like, Lori was crying. I was like, no. And she's like, I didn't know it was going to be so much, because if you see like the photos, the behind the scenes photos, I mean, it was wild. Like there were so many people there. Like Jean May was doing audio. Gabriella was the talent. And then Staci and Lori did their own thing. And they did a great job. And then we got to go to the gala and watch their video. Like they played it on the big screens at Armature. And it was really well received. So from top to bottom, I feel like we were able to collaborate with Selah successfully to get them exactly what they needed, and something that they can use over and over and over again to educate and inform people on what they're...
Plus, imagine the impact of them coming in and seeing how many people showed up to support a project like that.
Yeah.
And like the top-notch production equipment and studio space at View. I mean, that probably left quite an impression.
Right?
They were like, oh, okay, Tampa, thank you.
Like,
You and I offline have talked a little bit about how there's sometimes a misinterpretation of Tampa Bay and Florida at large as a market with little to no crew available. And you had mentioned that maybe there needs to be a conversation where, yes, there is crew here. That example of Selah Freedom, that project is one example, but we also talked about Totem Films. And you it was actually for an acting gig, right?
Yeah.
You went to their studio space and you auditioned for a role as a gardener. Am I correct in that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
when you showed up, what you were saying to me is that there were so many crew that you had never seen before. There was dozens of people there, and you were like, where did all these people come from? And it's like, they're right here. People are living and working in the video space in Tampa, in Florida. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Oh, I sure enough can. There was an audition that was going around, and Katie Denisian from Seven she sent it to me. Every once in a while she'll send me, like, she's like, hey, I think this would be a good thing for you to audition for. And it was a self-tape. I was like, yeah, that's really funny. I would love to audition for that. So I sent
it was a comedic role, right?
Yes. She typically sends like comedic type things for me, just being a smart aleck, so sometimes it's like, hey, and I'm like, hey. So she sends me this audition, and I do the self-tape, send it in, and then I got a call back. So I go, because it was through a casting company, like everything, and I go to the callback, and then I booked the role like 2 days later. I'm like, what?
Who, me?
Yeah. Well, it was kind of surprising. And it's with a company called Totem Films, who I haven't heard of, even though I work in Clearwater every day. They're also in Clearwater. I'm like, oh, here's another company I'm learning about. Very cool. So we had a on-location shoot in Tampa, and there's this whole crew there. And I'm like, other than Tony and Joe, the makeup artist, I don't know who any of these people are. And they were so professional. I mean, this is a massive setup. I mean, they had recreated the sun and on lifts, with like 18Ks, like flying in the air. They had this biggest truck from First Unit I've ever seen set up. I mean, they were extremely professional. And the shoot, the crafty person walked around with like pita and hummus, serving people.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, what is happening? So I'm like, I need to get out more or something. Like, I feel like I'm out all the time, but just did not, a couple of them were from Orlando because they had to bring in specialty trees because this was for a company in Canada. And it was like a specific type of tree for the bushes that they brought in. So there were,
details.
Yeah. They were really, I mean.
Think about that next time you watch a commercial. Or anything.
Yes, they had to recreate, make this backyard with all of the product from the store is called Rona. It's like the Lowe's of Canada, and they brought all the stuff from there to set up the backyard with all of the stuff from Rona. And I'm like, wow, right here in in our own backyard, this big shoot was happening. So I thought that was great, and it, opened my mind up even more than the companies that I've already been working with.
Do you have a preference for location shoots like that, or do you like to be in the studio? Like, what really do you groove with as a producer?
Gosh, I don't know. I think it depends on. I don't like being outside when it's hot.
That's hard in Florida.
When it's hot, it is awful. Kestum with Pete, we did a shoot in Puerto Rico in like July. It was hot, like really hot. Like didn't know I could even sweat that much. And I wasn't running the camera or anything. I would just have my clipboard, living the dream. And I was dying. It was really hot.
I know Film Florida just created a new swag item if you sign up for Film Florida to be a member. And it's a little fan for all the sets. And I was like, that's genius.
Yes.
Yeah. Every set. I mean, I go to sets and I see people using the little personal fans. And, I mean, it's a necessity. With the sunshine and the beautiful shots comes a little bit of heat, guys. So,
which is fine because you need it. It sets a tone, it sets a vibe, and you have the natural light. When it's the summertime, the sun looks and sets a certain way,
right?
And you need it on the water like that. So,
but what you're saying is you would rather be in the studio.
When it's 95 degrees outside, I would rather be in AC. And it doesn't have to be a studio. It could be a house. It could be it could be somewhere else. I think the controlled environment in the studio is nice, but it's also controlled. So you're in a commercial world, you're kind of limited to what's in the space. You're not gonna like pan too far somewhere because you're gonna go off the wall or something like that. Whereas if you're on location, there's probably more that you can do. So it depends on the product, the scope of the work. I don't want to be in somewhere where I'm like making it work and it's like, unless it's 95 degrees outside, I'll make whatever work on the inside. Like, that's fine with me.
So in addition to the faith-based content that you are working on and then all of this commercial work, you also have done some work for children's commercials. Is that right? Can you talk a little bit about how you got started doing that? And is it rewarding? Is it challenging working with kids? Like, what's that like?
It is not that challenging to work with kids, in my one-person opinion. It is the kids are great. I think the challenge is more in navigating the parents to make sure that you've made them comfortable and that they understand how the production is going to work and that the kids are going to get breaks and as many as they need, and then making sure that they're not worried that the kids are taking too long of a break because we build it into the schedule.
Right.
Like depending on the age, it's all set up properly so that they are, they're having short days, but they're also having as many breaks as they need to throughout the day, and letting the parents know that there's no pressure here.
Are there any sort of communication tips and tricks for working with kids and their parents that you've found to be useful?
I think being a kid when they come on set is important to relate to the kid without trying to actually be a child, and to make them comfortable, answer questions, take them around the set. Like the first thing that I do at the studio, we did, I'll just relate it to one project just to make it simple. My most favorite project probably in the world, not the biggest, but just my favorite, it was like 7 years ago. And it was for a talking sloth called Snacks the Sloth. And
That's adorable.
Girl, so cute. He's so cute. And I was part of the development team. So instead of like just being the producer, like I had a say in a lot of the creative decisions, like the sound of his voice, like should his stomach show, should his shirt cover, it was part of that team, and it was amazing. And then I also was a co-author of the book that comes with him with Amy Hammond. So it's like a day in the life of Snacks, because he's a slow moving sloth in a fast paced world.
I love it so much.
We're all, I am Snacks.
Yeah, right? Right? And then like the client who came up with the concept, he did like the foreword in the book. He's like, these are for all the kids that take your time. It's a superpower, not a crime. Oh my God. I was like, damn, so good. But that's the point of Snacks. Like, it's not like, hey, let's do a cash grab. It's for kids. It's made for kids. The focus groups were kids. Like everything we did was for kids. And it was incredible to be part of it. And then, so when it was time, we did a sizzle reel, and I had the editor's daughter and I were the sizzle. Like she was my fake daughter. Like we were just like, walking around Clearwater, like shooting at the park, whatever, with this prototype of Snacks the Sloth. And then when it came time to shoot, all the kids, like now I'm like vested. I'm like,
I'm invested. I'm just listening to the story,
doing the casting, like finding all these kids. And but one of the most important things with children, like if they come to the studio, for example, there's a lot to look at. There's a lot. I think as an adult, when you walk into a studio, like, oh, it is that. Imagine a child. They're just like, can I touch this? Can I touch that? And then, a lot of times the parents are like, don't touch anything. Everything looks expensive. And I mean, they're right. They're not wrong. So we'll take them around and like, what do you want to see? Like we'll go open all the kitchen cabinets. Totally fine. Let's go open the kitchen cabinets as long as, everything's safe and functional. They want to walk up the stairs? Absolutely not. Those are stairs to look at, but so they can look at the stairs. And then open cabinet doors, sit on the set bed, all of those things. And now they're, instead of being overwhelmed with all of this stimulus, they've felt like they're part of it. And that is always really helpful. We had one little boy during the snacks that desperately wanted to hold the camera. So I went and got my DSLR, which is a beast. He's not going to hurt it as long as he's sitting down. And I just opened it up. I was like, here, you're going to be the photographer. And his mom sat with him and he just snapped a bunch of blurry photos of everyone. Like he was hitting so fast, the autofocus was not autofocusing. It was adorable. So then after he did that, he was really chill. And then he became like Mr. Director Man. I was like, okay. Okay.
You gave him like a sense of importance, and you took him seriously. And that's
exactly like be one of them.
Everything.
Treat them equally to you within reason. Don't let them walk up the fake stairs that lead to literally nothing. But that is huge with kids, to build into the schedule the time for them to get to know all of these strangers that are surrounding them and putting lights in their face and making sure that the parents know how comfortable you are with them on set as well. So if the parent wants to stand there and watch the monitor, it's fine. Let us know. Whatever you need, we're going to make sure that you're comfortable. On the flip side, you should have a coordinator with you to help the parents not direct their children as well.
Yes.
It's natural for them to do it, and it's not something that I even get frustrated at, but you have to let them pass that trust to you, which sometimes a middle person really helps with, to figure out how to get them to trust me. Like I got you. Like this is fine. When I was early 20s, starting my Christian films, I was a children's portrait photographer at like the Walmart, the little thing inside of there. It was the same thing with the kids. Parents there, the kids are like, the parent walks away and you can pretend to fall down or, you do all this weird stuff. And then next thing you know, like you're besties. Yeah. And then the parents are just behind the curtain like, oh, okay, that's just glad he's not like making the weird smile.
I was going to ask if you had a background in working with children outside of filmmaking, like if you were a teacher or had any kind of education background.
I started there. I studied child psychology in school at UCF.
Wow.
I was going to be a school guidance counselor. It was my full thing. And my Christian films was like
I did not know that about
like
you.
a hobby.
That is so cool.
Yeah, I'm analyzing you right now.
I think that makes so much sense though, with your ease with working around children and being able to work with them to really bring out the best in them. Yeah. That makes so much sense.
Yeah. I feel like you want to work with kids too, Hilary.
I used to be a substitute teacher and I do not want to do it again.
Oh, damn.
I worked with pre-K 3-year-olds and I loved every second of it, but
what did you do?
Doesn't pay at all.
Girl, that's
I actually
why
worked
I came
at zoo
back.
School at Laurie Park Zoo. They have a private pre-K with a waiting list, and they get to walk around the zoo and learn about conservation while they are also learning about social and emotional development, taking turns. And so when you're saying all of this, I'm like, oh, does that kind of like garner a little bit for your inner child? It's kind of like, you know, you're talking to yourself when you're teaching them a little bit.
100%.
I know it's very rewarding for me to work with kids, so I can imagine.
Yeah, it's a good, it's like a, I mean, do you still feel good? Like with, like, was it the job or it was like the kids are too much?
I think I just, it's so different every day, which is so funny. It's not that different from film because film is different every day on set. But
children.
Yeah, it's just, it's not very stable if you're a substitute teacher. You're working with different kids every single day. So you're not really developing relationships throughout the year. You're not really seeing where they go. Are they doing well on their tests later on? So it's a different level of investment. Both of my parents are teachers as well. So I think it's just, I don't know. I fell into it. I would do it again if I had to, but
it's not School of Rock, is what you're saying. You're not going to start a band
as a wish I could be Jack Black.
Me too. That would be great.
Jack Black's the best. But yeah, I do want to talk about networking, and not to talk about something that everybody mentions, but the power of networking, you know, goes unsaid. You know, the power of it. It works. And I have seen you at women in film and television events. I've seen you at Film Florida events. I've seen you at our events. I mean, you're everywhere. Can you just talk to us about how important it is to kind of find your community and then support your community and show up for them?
I feel like when it comes to networking, I've noticed that there's a few trains of thought. So networking could be a chore, or you think that you go somewhere, you pass out your business cards and it's networking. That is a version of it that can certainly be helpful. But networking for me is about being part of your community. So I'm, as it relates to film, because this is the business we work in, if there's an event, it's not about me going out to be like, hey, you should hire me, or here's my card. I want to know who's in my community. How can I support them? How can I be part of their mission? And sometimes that works in reverse. Like they also want to support me and figure out how they can help me. And as a producer, you also, your network is what you have. So like the DP's got his camera and his lenses and his gear. Like producers have their network. So when you need to get something done, you need to know, like, if I need a permit, I know what to do because I know you guys. Before I ever had to file a permit, it was what on the COI, what like it was, you know, like a whole thing that you have to figure out. And now I've figured that out. Now if I have a weird situation, I know I can call you guys, and I'm not just a random producer who's calling you up to be like, hey, I want to fly a drone somewhere that you said no. What do I do? Now you could be like, well, there's another place similar, but you know, you could solution oriented, and supporting our Florida film community is important. And in turn, that just makes for good networking, to build honest relationships with people and understand what their goals are, and to support those goals, unless they're not in alignment with your morals or something. You can, you know.
And then you're like, nice to meet you. Have a good day.
Yeah. I don't typically find that. But you meet all kinds of people at, especially the Hillsborough events. I think what you guys do is great in the event space and the community support, because I don't just hear about permitting or like it's a mystery kind of thing. I see you guys at premieres. Birdie has the Bird Watch is very supportive in the community. Hilary came out to an event the other night for women in film. Like there's just so many ways that you guys support what we're doing as well, outside of like, oh yeah, here's how you get this permit, or that street's closed, or what have you. And I think that we could do the same in return.
Well, I really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
I think that's one of my favorite things about Tampa's film scene in general, is I've lived in other areas where the film festivals and the film commissions and different parts of the film industry don't really feel that connected. But here in Tampa, you do see those people showing up at these events, and you do see them working together and collaborating. And it's really exciting, just as a member of the film community, but also to see it grow like that, because it's not that way everywhere.
And you know what I noticed at networking events in Tampa is that it is a lot of film, like not commercial folks at these events. And this year I joined the board of Women in Film to hopefully be part of that shift to get our commercial making friends out and about to be part of all of this fun networking, because they too have the same well, I can't really help film people, and then film people don't typically work on commercial sets kind of situation and mindset. I'm not saying that's to be fact, but this is the mindset.
They silo themselves a little bit.
In my experience, I did it too for 8 years. My little commercial bubble was where I lived and stayed, and I was just kind of in there until Lori's show, and I took on a producing role last year. It was like I have limited my network to commercial filmmakers, and that's not serving me well. So I need to, be supportive of the entire film community. So I'm hoping to work with production company, like Kestum and GRP Studios and Next 30 Productions, who were sponsors of Jingle Mingle for WIFT. They're starting to see like, okay, I should come out. And you guys had, Film Tampa Bay had a networking like Christmas thing, like a small Christmas thing at the end of last year. And there were 4 different production companies that I saw come out. And Next 30, like Auric was there, Joe Boylan was out there, and some people from Diamond View were there. And there was a lot of commercial people, and they're like, oh, like Auric from Next 30 you met him that night, like Brianna's husband. So he was like, oh, he does it. Oh, I had no idea that this is what it is. Like he just assumes it's actors, which, to be fair, Women in Film had like a lot of acting events at the time that I think that he explored it. I think he just went to maybe 3 acting things and thought it was all acting. And so he had no idea that every networking event that we have, especially when it says film Tampa Bay, that it's not just for actors, for us commercial people too. It's not just for filmmakers. Commercial people we are making films. They are 30 seconds long, but they tell a story from start to finish. And so at the end of the day, it's still a film.
Absolutely.
And I think that's something we've kind of seen too. And like we were trying to better connect with the production companies and pulling those people that were at that networking event, because we've noticed that there is a lot of actors that show up, and that's amazing. You can't network and make those connections if you don't show up. But we were just trying to make sure that, different types of positions were getting the invite as well. So we're trying to broaden it from our side too.
Yeah, I think they get the invite. They just think they don't belong there. Speaking from my own experience, I've been a member of Women in Film, for example, for many years. And when I first started going to Film Florida events, I was like, my people are here. Where are my people? And that's why I was so vested. I'm like, yes, this is where a lot of commercial people are in these annual meetings. And then to sit and listen to all the film commissioners come from all over the state, and you're like, oh, like you're getting all the tea, all the tea. Like
those are the best meetings.
You have to be like, of all the organizations, Film Florida is one of those that if you pick up a camera and you shoot in the state, you should be part of Film Florida, honestly, because they not only are hustling, like the work that they're doing they're on the defensive right now, I would say, like just trying to keep the things that we have. And then if that ever calms down, and maybe we could get more things, more incentives outside of just certain counties that are doing a good job of that. And I think Sandy was a perfect person to put in that position as well. She's going to kill it because she's a beast. John is constantly like, these are our people. $75, I think, for Film Florida to support the effort is worth it. If you're a business, $250, $500 is like the lowest. Support the effort to keep film, keep it weird but respectful, and throughout the entire state. But most importantly, when you are a member and you can go to these annual meetings, oh my gosh, the tea. The first, I was addicted to like listening to all the film commissions talk about like issues and things that come up, or how many permits they're getting, what types of permits they're getting. As just like a normal person out there living your life in this film world, you're not privy to that information. It's not, you could look it up, but like you're not hearing it firsthand about, oh, some film down in Miami. If you're at the Film Florida meeting, you're going to hear everything that happened during that film. So instead of hearing it from like 15 different people and it's through a game of telephone, you're going to get it straight from the film commission.
The official report.
Yes. So, the same Tyler gives the first time, because Tyler does not hold back when he's like, well, like the drone, helicopter thing that happened a few years ago. He wasn't playing when he was talking about that. I'm not gonna like spill the tea here because you should come to the meeting and listen to Tyler's
lesson. If you're listening, please check out filmflorida.org.
Yeah, Tyler goes and he does not hold back.
I just think that's a great point. It's been really helpful for me in what I do at the Film Commission to hear from everybody in the state and understand what's going on in their markets. I think it helps us understand what we do in Tampa better. So I'm glad you also get something out of it.
Conversation. Right. Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Staci, for this conversation. And before we sign off, where can people find you?
First of all, you could catch me outside. How about that? But if you really want to find me, you could go to my website, stacitalley.com, or on Instagram at Staci Talley Producer. I think that about sums it up.
And that's Staci, S-T-A-C-I.
See, that's a producer right there.
Talley.
Yes. STACITALLEY.com. So Staci with an I. Staci with an I, Talley.com.
Well, thank you again for joining us today. And if you're listening or watching, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
All right. Well, that was fantastic. I loved hearing from Staci.
Oh, yeah.
And learning more about her background, especially her work in commercials and children's commercials.
Yeah, I feel like we all had a very connected moment there where we all have background in education and teaching. So I liked that.
It's interesting to see how that's transformed into being something that's useful for what we do now.
Yeah.
Not that filmmakers are like children sometimes.
Well, we all have an inner child, and, the film sets can create some tension, especially when there's, you're being told no a lot for locations or for shots, or, you have a tight deadline, or you have a client that's, high maintenance. Then your inner child's going to come out. Your emotions are going to get raised to 11. So I think that understanding from an education and approaching those emotions from like, oh, this person is not feeling heard, and approaching it from that way, that's definitely a tool set that comes into working on a film set, I think. And that's cool that we all three have that in common.
Absolutely. Yeah. Another thing that we all have in common, we're all Florida natives. How often you get three of those in the same room.
We didn't realize that till after the fact. But yeah, I was born and raised here. Born at Tampa General Hospital, but raised a little bit north in Lutz. Where were you born?
I am originally from Palm Beach County. And then I think Staci is from this area as well, right?
She mentioned Clearwater a couple of times. You asked her if she was a Florida native, and we didn't ask what part of Florida. But that is cool. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of transplants here for sure. Yeah. I'll tell you, I'm the first generation Florida native.
I am also a first generation Florida native.
So whoop, whoop.
But she had also mentioned during the interview that she loved the atmosphere of sets when kids are there. And so it can create a different vibe. And I was just kind of reminiscing about some of my favorite like kids commercials. Yeah. Like I don't get those on Hulu or HBO Max or whatever now.
And
so
if you do, you're going to skip it. You're going to be like, skip ad,
so
or pay for no
nostalgic.
Ads. Yeah. But you remember the old commercials. One that sticks out is Silly Rabbit, tricks are for kids. I feel like that one's just, when you said, old commercials, that's the first thing that came to mind. But remember when commercials were pretty much just trying to sell kids things? Like, I remember there was this balloon thing, and you would have to have a special straw to blow this balloon up because it was made of plastic.
Yes, I remember that. I never got one.
I did. I didn't order it from the TV, but like, a few years later, Walmart was like, okay, we'll sell these. And I was like, I saw that on the TV, and we got one, and it sucked. That thing did not stay blown up. It was a mess. I feel like Silly Putty was the same thing. It was like, it all started out with an infomercial, and then it became like this big deal. But
it's a really interesting phenomenon because they are clearly marketing directly at kids, even though the kids aren't the ones with the bank accounts or the wallets.
Right.
So what is that psychology happening there to try and influence the kid to then influence their parents?
It's sneaky.
Staci was talking a lot about some of the like music and sound effects that they use to make commercials exciting. Were there any like exciting commercials that you remember that stick out for the music or sound effects?
For sound effects, well, I wouldn't be doing my job right if I didn't promote a local guy, right? So Roger Hughes worked on the Florida Lotto commercial, and we had him on here as a guest a few months ago. But Roger Hughes is a local post sound designer, and he added for this Lotto commercial, there was like spurs and boots. And anyways, I love that sound in Western movies too. Like No Country for Old Men is all sound effects with the spurs and the boots and the leather on the horses. And so that Florida Lotto commercial, I was like, I could listen to that just like an ASMR video, like those sounds are awesome. Yeah. What about you?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I still think of the Marooney commercials, and I'm from Palm Beach County, so you guys probably didn't even have them over here, but they took the Ghostbusters theme song and they would do, it would be like Call Marooney instead. And I'm not going to sing it because if I sing it, it is going to get stuck in my head for the next 10 years.
Of that?
You had one too?
Ours was Ottaway.
Okay.
Who are you going to call? Ottaway.
And ours was with Marooney. Who are you going to call? Marooney. And it was just stuck in my head all the time. And
this song, so can I sing it the whole? If you need a car, truck, or van, who are you gonna call? Marooney? Ottaway.
Yeah, so they did the exact same parody.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I wonder if these are
that just like that was like a flashback. I could not sing.
I know. Yeah, there's a little bit of like PTSD with it.
Yeah,
but I wonder if it was like different branches of the same company, even because this was
Probably.
like late 90s.
What?
Probably
That's
phased
wild.
out by like 2002,
Wow.
2003.
This is a moment where it's like, oh wow, my world's much bigger than just where I live. I was like, Ottaway's got to be a national thing, right? No, it's not. That's crazy. I pulled up a few too, just because I can't think of them all off the top of my head. There's Lucky Charms. They're magically delicious. Nationwide is on your side.
all of the insurance companies, they've got the best jingles.
Yeah.
State Farm.
Yep. I remember the Huggies one. I'm a big kid now.
Oh,
Huggies.
yeah.
Huggies. Didn't know it was Huggies till I pulled up this list, but I remembered the song. Oh, and Chia. That's 90s.
Yeah.
That is stuck in the 90s. Yeah. But anyways, yeah, every good commercial has a good jingle. But yeah.
Yeah. Goes to show the importance of good sound design.
Yep. And it sticks with you. That's for sure.
All right. Well, on that note, that's all for today. And unfortunately, we don't have a Film Tampa Bay jingle to play. But
no. Oh,
Jesse-
man, that's a great idea. We need a Film Tampa Bay jingle. We need it for this podcast. That would be like a loose framing jingle. That's a great idea.
We could have
or maybe
a competition
not.
and have people submit their Film Tampa Bay jingles.
Oh, that's so fun. But yeah, Staci Talley, she works with Kestum Bilt. Kestum Bilt is, an organization local to Tampa. We also interviewed Pete Guzzo. So his interview is coming out next month. But yeah, Staci Talley, so many hats. I loved talking to her. And if you're going to a networking event in Florida, you're going to run into her. She's at Film Florida. Please check them out at filmflorida.org. She is part of Women in Film and Television Florida. Please check them out, wiftflorida.org, I think. I don't know. You could just Google Women in Film. But those are, every time someone approaches our office and asks for ways to get their foot in the door with the film industry, I'm always recommending those two organizations because not only are they well attended, but there's people that are making movies and making moves, and they are going to those events. They're some of the most well attended events that you're going to find. And then our local stuff too. We have local filmmaking networking events that happen sporadically throughout the year. So yeah, follow us at Film Tampa Bay so that you don't miss out on those.
All right. And with that, thank you for joining us on the Loose Framing Podcast.
We are Loose Framing Podcast. Stream us anywhere you listen to podcasts or watch us on YouTube. And don't forget to follow us at Film Tampa Bay.